Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for finding time to join us today. My name is Salma Avdic with the American Marketing Association, and I will be your moderator for our webcast, which is in partnership with eClerx Digital. And our topic for today is how customer experience is the new competitive differentiator. But before we get to our topic, I do want to cover important housekeeping items. So our session is being recorded today and will be made available later on this afternoon on ama.org/webcast. We also encourage and invite you all to continue this conversation on Twitter, and you can do so by referencing hashtag eClerx when tweeting about this webcast. And if at any point you have content-related questions, technical questions, please feel free to ask. You can use the chat that's located to the left of your screen. And before I introduce our speaker, I do want to share a little bit about our partner today. So eClerx Digital, they have a team of analytics and optimization experts that are designed to help marketers, customer experience teams, as well as business leaders to better understand their customers. So eClerx enables brands to deliver a relevant, meaningful customer experience across every channel. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about our partner, feel free to go to www.eclerxdigital.com. And with that, I am pleased and excited to welcome our speaker. So we have Tiffani Bova with us, and she is the author of Wall Street Journal bestseller, Growth IQ, Get Smarter About the Choices That Will Make or Break Your Business. And she is also the Global Customer Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. So with that, I will turn it over to Tiffani now to officially get us started.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, eClerx, for inviting me today to talk about customer experience as the new competitive differentiator. And thank you to all of you for spending your morning or afternoon with us to talk about this exciting topic. As was mentioned, my name is Tiffani Bova. I am the Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. And before we get started, I'm going to be talking about some concepts and ideas that may or may not be available on our platform, so please make any buying decisions that you do as our existing customers or potential clients with what we have available today. So with that said, I like to start out with the sort of aha slide. And for me, it was this one. Customers will remember the experience they have with a brand or person much longer than the price they paid. I like to use Uber as an example. We can all say that Uber provides a job to get us from point A to point B, or we can catch a taxi. Many of us make the decision every time we are on the road to take an Uber versus taking a taxi. And I often get asked, why is it that you do that? And I said, for me, it is about the experience. Number one, I can tell you that I don't have to carry currency wherever I am in the world. So I don't have to worry about having cash or whatever the country currency is on me, or worry about the fact that a credit card machine will not work in a taxi. The second thing for me is the fact that it connects directly with my expense reporting system. So absolutely, I don't have to worry about losing my receipt, which I often did, or I forgot how much I actually spent in cash. I might say I spent $20 when in fact I spent $28. I just was not aware of the dollar amount every single time I would catch a taxi. And the third thing for me, and more important really, was about safety. Someone would know where I was last. And so those three things combined get me to stand on a street corner in freezing cold weather during surge pricing, waiting for an Uber to show up while I watch taxis drive by. And that's why we say that customers will remember this experience, because that experience to me helps shape the fact that I make the decision to catch an Uber over catching a taxi when I'm on the road and it's available. And more importantly, more times than not, I don't actually remember how much I paid for my Uber ride. If I still had to enter it into my expense system, that might be a reason I would revisit the price. But for all intent and purposes, for me, It is completely an experience decision because the job of getting from point A to point B is exactly the same. With that in mind, the opportunity in front of us is that customers actually say, 80% of them say the experience a company provides is as important as its products. And so for those of you listening that work for a product-led company, or you're an engineering-led company, and you may not actually think about how is the customer going to experience the product more than the UX, right? More than the user design, not how easy it is to use the product, but more importantly, just thinking about holistically everything that they touch within your brand and your products, so the support of the products, how they have to pay for and buy and return the products, I mean all in. And so now people are making decisions around ways in which they can be, companies are making decisions about ways they can be much more competitive using experience as a complement or even a lead on top of the products that they're manufacturing. We as consumers are saying, as with my Uber example, 67% of us will pay more for a great experience. So going back to that Uber example on the surge pricing, for those of you who aren't familiar with Uber, basically that means when there's less drivers on the road, they actually charge a little bit of a premium to get a driver at that time. Could be a 5% surge on top of it, a 10 or a 15% surge, sometimes even higher. And so I'm willing to not only potentially spend a little bit more, but a lot more for that better experience. And we can think of many brands in the consumer space. If it's Four Seasons, many use Nordstrom's. Now it could be brands like Shake Shack or Zappos or Sephora or Ulta. You've got all kinds of retailers now on the consumer side that are actually showing that experience will allow them to not play the price card and fight on the race to zero, but start to actually raise their prices as they make investments in delivering a better experience, of which technology is part of it, but not all of it. So what are some examples? This is usually a build slide, but so try not to read all of them right off the bat. But it's been proven as a great competitive differentiator. One example I love to use is Tony Heisch from Zappos, CEO of Zappos. We take most of the money that we could have spent on paid advertising and instead put it back into the customer experience. Then we let the customers be our marketing. They're maniacal about their customer service. They call it customer success. It's all about how can they serve the customer better in the entire life cycle of buying the products and services the products that they sell online, as well as if they have any issues on the return, get 5 shoes, keep 1, return 4, that it's very seamless. And if there's a problem, calling in and making sure that that customer gets resolution regardless of how much time it may take the customer service agent. The next is Steve Jobs. This is a very famous quote. And what I don't want you to get from this is you have to be him in this particular case. Anticipating what consumers may need or businesses may need 10 years out. I just need you to think about it differently to get ahead maybe a quarter or 2. That alone goes a long way. The next is we're not competition obsessed, we are customer obsessed. Many companies spend quite a bit of time benchmarking themselves against their competitors. And what does that actually mean? From a feature functionality standpoint on the product side, could be the way they sell, could be their websites, could be their customer service, customer support, all kinds of ways that they benchmark. If you spent a portion of that benchmarking budget or time or resource on actually trying to find out what in fact your customers want from you and are looking for from you, that may actually deliver better returns. So the question really is, how do you become more customer obsessed than worrying potentially about what your competitors are doing? And then Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, most of all, I discovered that in order to succeed with a product, you must truly get to know your customers and build something for them. I actually am part of a team that also includes the voice of the customer, which is a great way for you to continue to get a pulse of what it is that your customers are looking for from you. I don't mean surveys. I don't mean just sending them an email after they've had a customer support ticket. That is part of it, but actually getting in front of your customers, going and visiting them face to face. And if you're small and you say, I can't really afford to do that, you have to find a way. Maybe it's video conferencing, but understanding what they need, that's the way you can satisfy the Steve Jobs quote, get out a quarter or two. You have to know what your customers are looking for. You don't have to respond and do everything that they want, but you at least have to make conscious decisions about what are the things you're going to invest in. The next, I really enjoy this quote, which is Ford will build a self-driving business that prioritizes the people experience over the technology experience. This is a huge pivot for a car company who usually their television and advertising campaigns are completely focused around gas mileage, the drivetrain, the horsepower, where it's manufactured, how it's engineered, all of the technical aspects of building and producing these cars. Now it's a lot about the people experience inside the cars. Are there USB ports? Where can you put your iPad? If you've just been paying attention to advertising lately, you'll really see the shift around the experience people have when they're driving cars on a family vacation or going on an excursion or driving around the city. Really putting that front and center is a great example of how brands are shifting from being product-led to being customer-led. And what's the value of doing that? A lot. But what is the reality? Customers say to us 57% have stopped buying from a company because a competitor provided a better experience. Not a better price, not more features and functionality, a better experience. And so thinking about why you're winning or why you're losing in deals, why customers are choosing you versus why they're choosing another brand, not only should you do analysis around the products that it is that you're selling, but also about the experience. And 51% say most companies fall short of their experience expectations. So I'm going to pause here for just a second, because many of the examples I've just given are on the consumer side. And for those of you listening that have a B2B business or a business-to-business type of product versus a business-to-consumer type of product, I no longer make that distinction. I actually call it B2E, so business to experience, or business to everyone, everything, and every experience. And so B2E for me gets us out of this conversation, this differentiation argument between B2C and B2B products. It's a way for me to actually just frame the conversation around the customer. So in this case, we are all consumers in our day-to-day lives. We do not walk into work and peel off our consumer cape and put on our business cape and have a totally different expectation when we show up. We still want that, at least that same experience we get in our consumer lives, but because we're in a business environment, we actually expect more. And so what's happening is the B2B side of the surveys that we're doing is showing higher expectations than consumer, which means for those of you in the business-to-business type of product solution, you have to think about this experience play. So the examples I gave you on the consumer side are a way for you to understand what you individually enjoy about experiences you have with other brands. Why do you enjoy it? What is the compelling experience, and how could you potentially replicate that in your business environment? And so why are these expectations changing? Right? They are changing for a few reasons. One is we as customers and businesses used to be in reactive mode. Someone would call and leave a message for you and say, I'm having a problem with a product, or I need to return a product, or they'd send an email. And so we would react to whatever that is. Or if a website was going to be down for maintenance and then we didn't let the customers know, ultimately all of a sudden customers start calling in and say, my website is down. And so we moved from being reactive to becoming much more proactive. Our website's going to be under maintenance between 12 and 12:05, or it's time for you to bring your car in for a service, or we're recalling a car, or we're reaching out to let you know that your particular product is going to be end of life, and so we're offering a deal for you to upgrade and refresh your product. We proactively got smarter about the things that we knew about our customers so that we didn't have to wait for them to call in. Now we're getting much more predictive because of the advancements of technology around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other things, where in reality we now can say customers who prefer these two products are more likely to buy this third product. So they have apples and oranges, they're more likely to buy pineapples. And so if someone calls in the call center and the call center rep has access to the information and sees that, hey, this customer would be a perfect candidate for this other product we have, almost like the recommendation engine if you think online, that is what I mean by predictive. And this has become hugely powerful. Even if you just look at someone as massive as Amazon, some 30+% of their revenue online on Amazon.com comes from the recommendation engine. So not something that someone landed on Amazon and said, I need to buy these two things. It was, I need to go buy this one thing, and then I didn't even know I needed the second thing, and I'm buying it. So not only is it driving 32% of the revenue, but it's also like 80 or 90% of those opportunities are when people didn't know they needed whatever it is they ended up buying. And so the predictive nature, whether it's Netflix of what you may want next, or the recommendation engine on Amazon or on Spotify, if you like this music, you'll like that music to get you to expand your horizon, how could you apply that in your own business? The only way you can really do that, especially at scale, is if you're using technology. And so why, if the expectations are changing, they are now changing so much more rapidly? The reason is back to what I was saying. I don't need you to be 10 years out, but you need to get to the future before your customers do and welcome them when they arrive. If they all of a sudden want something from you, let's say, you know what, I want to SMS text message customer support, or I want to do it on Facebook Messenger, or I want to do it in another medium, not on the phone, and they don't offer that. You don't offer that. I'm now going to make a decision, should I stay with that particular brand or should I switch brands? Going back to customers are actually changing because of the experience. Could be the fact that I don't actually want to call in anymore when I have a problem. I want to chat, or I want to do it on text message, or I want to do it on Facebook Messenger. And so ultimately that's another example of getting there before they arrive. I don't need you to be waiting for them for 2 years before they're ready to use Messenger. But in mass and in the mean, you want to make sure that you're there when people start telling the market that this is a new channel that they want to engage in. And for sure, those two examples around SMS, Messenger, as well as some things happening in video, customers are saying this is the way that we actually want to communicate with the brands. And so what further does that mean? It's because customers are not only saying, I want you to welcome me, but I want the experience to be connected. I want it to be personalized. I want it to be fast in order to win my business. Now, I don't want it to be fast and you do speed and become sloppy. I want you to be fast, but not fast and then give a poor experience. An example would be a bot answering the question within 2 minutes. Of course, that's fast. But did it really answer the question? Or did it just get the customer upset that it didn't answer my question? It asked me a question back, and then the customer realizes maybe I'm not actually speaking with a human or communicating with a human. It must be a bot. And then the result of that, even though it was fast, and even though it was personalized because it said, hi, Tiffany, and even though it was connected because now I'm on chat, it wasn't a good experience because I could tell that there are still many things technology has got to catch up to, and making sure that you configure things in a way that deliver a fantastic experience when you start using this kind of technology. So it is connected, it is personalized and fast, but not at the expense of delivering a poor experience. So the second thing is technology. So your business needs to exploit new capabilities from innovation. This, while may sound slightly obvious, I think we have two issues going on here. One is that we're extending and expanding the tech stack, either on the MarTech side, on the sales side, or on the customer service side specifically around customer-facing technologies, is we've got a lot of technology deployed, but we don't know how they all work together. Or we're not using them to the level of capabilities that they in fact have. So from a value perspective, you've made an investment and you're not seeing the return on that investment. This has everything to do with making sure that people understand why you've made a decision to use a particular technology solution, what benefit they will get in their role, training and enabling them to be successful using it, and more importantly, managing and rewarding them around the usage of that technology to ensure that they're always keeping the customer at the center of how and where they're using it. And this is where it all comes to fruition. One is we have no shortage of data. There's no shortage of data. What there is a shortage of, though, is analyzing that data, refining that data, and then using the intelligence you get from the data to change the behaviors you have today versus what you did yesterday. I don't need it to be every single hour you change behavior or every single day, but you need to start looking for trends and patterns in what's happening in your customer base with the usage of technology so that you can, in fact, be successful. The next is having these smarter platforms. And so, ultimately, smarter platforms allow everybody to just have access to more information wherever they are. So it could be on their cell phone, it could be if they're on their laptop, it could be if it's connecting all of them together on one device. At the end of the day, you want to take advantage of the fact that you have access to all of these platforms. And the next is our new interfaces. And so we have to expand beyond just the phone and our computers and potentially the way we've usually engaged with customers. And now think about it from a voice-activated perspective, right, around things like Alexa. And web browsing is going to be much more voice command versus typing. The generation that is sort of under the age of 16 today may never type. They may just verbally make commands, they may dictate text messages and emails, and so are you prepared to do that? And then this connected home, if any of you are selling into the consumer space, the largest computer we have today is actually our automobiles and not our cell phones and not our laptops. And so if you're in that space, how do you take advantage of those new capabilities in these new interfaces? And those three things, data, artificial intelligence, smart interfaces, can absolutely transform customer experience. So the third side of this, once you have speed, once you have technology, is your brand is the sum of all your customer touch points. Everything your brand does, whether it's the call center, the sales rep, what marketing delivers from a brand promise or a vision or the advertising that you're pushing out to the R&D facility, to the programmers, to the receptionist, everything. That is your brand. Your brand is not what you say it is. It's what your customers actually tell you it is. So understanding the customer experience in all of these various touch points, because the core pillars of every great experience is customers are saying to us, I want you to know everything about me. Whether I deal with sales, customer service, or marketing, I want you to know everything about my engagement with you. If I have 3 customer service tickets open and I'm not happy with whatever it is I purchased from you, the next day, don't have a sales rep call me and try to sell me more. I want them to know, so when they call me, they may say, you know what, I'm calling because I see you have 3 tickets open. I want to make sure everything's okay. Is there anything I can do? That one shift has huge implications into what they think about your brand. And that's where you can start to personalize those communications at scale, using artificial intelligence, using machine learning to not just say, dear valued customer, or dear Tiffani Bova, or dear Tiffani, but actually saying, dear Tiffani, I see you have 2 tickets open. I want to know if there's anything that I can do. And maybe you don't even send that email, that the automated tool does it for you, but because it's so highly personalized and you know what's going on at the moment, it's super, super engaging. After post-sale, customer service, I'm giving you a much better experience. And so that is how you have to think about how to deliver these great experiences to customers. Now, all of you, if I could see you, I'm guessing you're sort of nodding your head going, yep, nothing I didn't know. Thank you for validating what I was thinking. That's a good sign. Where people get caught is, now how do you stand out from the crowd? how do you actually execute these concepts? And if you're a small company, how do I do it without impacting my existing business? If you're a larger company, how do I get everybody on board to understand this new philosophy that we're trying to do and present to market? The first thing I'd say is, in the future, customer-driven orgs will completely reset the value and meaningful engagement with customers. You have to totally think differently about what got you here may not get you there. The way you used to service customers should not be the way you serve them today. If you're still doing things exactly the same way as you did 3 years ago, that tells me that you've not acquired one more customer. You have the same set of customers. You're using the exact same tools. You have the same salespeople. You have the same, leadership team. Everything would be exactly the same in this, protected insular, bubble. But if that's not the truth and that's not the reality, there's no way that you should be doing everything the same way you were. Now, many people, when I say that, go, we're doing everything different than we used to, but your corporate PowerPoint is exactly the same. Or the metrics that you measure your customer service agents is exactly the same. So while you may think things are really different because from the inside out, they feel really different, like, oh my God, we've changed so many things. But from the outside in, they don't feel like you've done anything different. And that's where you have to reset these meaningful engagements with customers. So once again, how are you going to do that? So I like to start with these 3 things. And these 3 things, by the way, are not small endeavors. The first one is, I see it over and over again, no matter where I am in the world. Prior to joining Salesforce, I spent a decade as a research fellow at Gartner, and I watched this every single day, every size organization, every industry around the globe. And I can tell you the disconnected teams that we have between sales and marketing is a pretty known dilemma of how do you make these teams work better together. But the one piece I want everyone to get out of this particular slide is it isn't just about marketing and sales. You have to think about customer service. That customer service is now the trifecta of powerful and meaningful engagements with your customer, because it isn't just about everything you do pre-sales, like, oh, I'm watching the customer journey, the website is much more seamless and frictionless, their buying experience is so amazing, our sales teams are empowered and enabled with all the latest technology, they're selling on mobile, they're selling via video. On the front end, it is fantastic. And then once the customer becomes a customer, it's like you forget about them. No longer do they have this great example. So these disconnected teams are being driven, in my opinion, by disconnected metrics. Everyone's running in different directions. So sales, I'm oversimplifying. How much did you sell today? Marketing, how many leads did you drive, good or bad? Customer service, how quickly did you do first call resolution? Or how quickly did you get the customer off the phone, or did you answer the phone? And then those 3 things pull those teams in very different directions, because sales is like, I closed it, I'm on, I toss it over the fence. Customer service, you deal with it. Customer service is like, we shouldn't have sold them this product, we sold them the wrong product, now I got to fix it. Marketing is out there saying, we're doing these things, or we promise we're going to do these things. Sales and service has no understanding. So you have to have a common goal around whether it's net promoter score, whether it's customer satisfaction, whether it's churn, right, the loss of customers, whether it's lifetime value. Something has to connect it. And this is a place where companies actually miss the point as they're moving towards customer experience, is they don't think about the people process side. They just deploy technology, or they change their vision statement, or they update their website, and they don't actually remember that it has everything to do with the people process, and that results in what's next, right? This disconnected experience. I feel like I'm working with different companies, and I actually want to feel like I'm working with one company, one department, not separate. I expect companies to provide the same level of service with every single interaction. And so I'm likely to switch, remember, if it's inconsistent across department. So sales gives me one perception, marketing online and through the advertising gives me another one, and then customer service gives me a completely different one. And so thinking about the connection between customer service and the experience you get there and the cost of the goods and services, thinking about COGS, thinking about this experience, I will tell you the best advice I can give here is the moment you don't look at customer service as a cost center any longer, and you think about it as an opportunity for additional revenue generation, even changing the name from customer service to customer success goes a long way. But if you just change the name and you don't change the processes and the people side and enable customer service the same way you enable sales, and maybe it does become part of your COGS, but at the end of the day, if you're going to see how much does your customer service agents cost, how much revenue are they actually generating in net new business, what does their pipeline look like in that way, they may have a much lower cost of sales than salespeople, because it's much more expensive to recruit and acquire a net new customer than it is to sell to your existing base. So not only will they be more successful because the pipeline will be much faster, the likelihood to close the deal will be much higher, and you have a captured audience that has already told you once they're willing to make a decision to buy your brand. So getting them to do it again is much easier than convincing someone who doesn't know you. So really thinking about using customer service in a new way. And so why does the technology and why do these things that I'm telling you have such impact on sales performance and growth is because we still spend a majority of our time as sales reps not selling. Now, whether you look at this number and go, there's no way that 66% of my sales reps' times are spent not selling, this is from a Salesforce State of Sales report. And so if you're looking for it after, you can get it at salesforce.com/research. Actually, all of these stats that I've been showing you today, you can gather there. But when we looked at this, we looked at it because we said, look, if we can just save 5 or 7% of their time, how to deliver a more compelling experience, or how do we get them to automate, like that email I said, I see you have 2 tickets open, how can I help? Any of those things, if you can give people back 5% of their time and help them increase quota attainment, which by the way also sits around the 50% mark, so 50% of your sellers are not hitting quota and 66% of their time is not selling, we have a problem. Now, part of the quota problem could be the quota was unrealistic, or there's all kinds of other issues that are potentially going on. But let's just say then let's say if we eliminate those and they're 75% of the time, the point is you do not have a sales force that is hitting 100% of quota 100% of the time. So there's always room for improvement. And this is where you have opportunity to let technology free up some of the time so that sales can actually focus on selling. Now, selling for selling's sake is not also good. So making sure you give them the new kinds of metrics that are more customer-facing versus just quota retirement will go a long way to start to change the behavior, because it's incentivizing the wrong behavior if you're only rewarding them for top-line sales and you're not keeping them and holding them responsible for what happens after that. And so the next side of that is the sales and marketing alignment. When you have sales and marketing truly aligned, they are 1.9% more likely than others to understand why marketing passes them a lead, the fact that it was scored and qualified, what I need to do next, and I'm far more productive and I'm far more likely to close and hit my quota if I wasn't aligned with sales. And this sort of friction between these two groups must get fixed. Invite marketers out on sales calls. Let salespeople sit in on marketing meetings. Let marketers sit in and listen in on sales calls on the phone. Go out on face-to-face sales meetings if you have a field sales force. Let marketers get more engaged. The trick here is, if you're listening to this, don't let marketing go out and say, I work for marketing. I'm here to listen what you think of what we do, because you're not going to get reality. Let the marketer go out and say, I'm a new hire salesperson. I'm just here shadowing Tiffani for the day to just see and meet customers. You're going to hear the truth. The moment you tell them you're from marketing, they're going to give you, that everything's fantastic, versus you actually seeing the customer saying, I'm not interested in seeing that wonderful PowerPoint that marketing spent 6 months developing. It's a great big reality check on both sides if you can get each other exposed to what the other does. The next side of this is collaborating with service. It closes the life cycle journey. Remember, this is all about lifetime value. If a customer buys from you once, you want them to buy from you again. You want them to buy from you more often. You want them to add more of whatever it is that they've already purchased, especially if you're in I sell it to them once and 3 months from now they're going to run out of whatever it is and I want them to buy my brand again. Or they bought it for a year, I want them to renew. Or they come by every Wednesday to pick up donuts and I have a donut shop, I want them to come by Wednesdays and Fridays, or not just Sundays. You want them to come back more. And so thinking about cross-selling and customer satisfaction hinges on this new dynamic of getting service reps much more engaged with sales enablement and marketing enablement and tying all those things together. And so then we move to how do you do it? The only way you're going to be able to get sales, marketing, customer service to kind of work together, you've got to have a single source of truth. Now, that is not an easy lift, and I don't mean it to sound that way. We have disparate databases. Some is in legacy systems, some is in Excel spreadsheets, some is on cloud, some is on premise, some is with this vendor, some is with that vendor. So getting to a single sort of source of truth is not easy, but really powerful if you can do it. Even if you can't get it all in one database, which is the optimal way to get this rolled out, you have to at least give exposure so that people have access to all the information in a single source. So even if it's one pane of glass and has access to other databases behind the scenes, ultimately if someone has to bounce between multiple tools in order to get that information of what tickets do they have open, what deals do they have open, like what have they done with us, and I've got 5 windows open as a salesperson, not effective. And what ends up happening is the customer feels like you don't know me, it's not personalized, and it's taking me too long for me to engage with you. So you've got to think about what are the technologies that can get us there. So artificial intelligence is not replacing sales jobs. It's actually increasing the usage or increasing the size of sales teams when it starts getting used, because now the cost of goods is going down, your acquisition rates are going down, your close rates are going up. And so if I hire one more salesperson, remember, if I'm only 60% of my time non-selling activities and 50% hitting quota, hiring one more salesperson is like a 2-for-1. But if I could get one salesperson to produce and I hire another one, now it's not 2-for-1, it's 2 for 1.5 and then 1.7, and eventually it will be 2 for 3, right? So now you get this productivity lift when you start using some of the things that are now available to us. But I cannot stress enough, it has to do with the people and process, not just the technology. The technology will enable us to do all these things I just described for the last half hour. But if you don't fix the process side and everyone still opens and closes a ticket the exact same way, then you're not using the technology for all that it is capable of doing. And so the future for me is absolutely contextual, and it's data-driven. And what I mean by contextual is your reality. All of us on this phone work for different companies. We're all unique in our own ways, going back to benchmarking the competitors. At the end of the day, I want you to say, that's great that our competitors are doing this, but what's more important is, what do my customers want from me? What does my product portfolio look like? What is my brand promise? Are we meeting it? What do my customers think of the experience? How are my salespeople using the tools and systems and service and marketing people? So contextual means, what is your reality? Data-driven means you're making decisions based on data and not just gut alone. I grew up as a quota-bearing sales rep. I sort of say I'm a recovering seller and I bleed sales blood, and I ran my business on gut. I wasn't using data to make the decisions that I was making. Today, that is no longer the case. I don't want you to forget all the things you know and the experiences you have and the lessons you've learned and the things that have worked for you. I want you to augment it with technology. It's about human plus machine, not machine or human. So it's really about pulling those two things together. So then you need to do, first and foremost, at an executive level, from the bottom up, is establish a customer-centric culture. I cannot stress this enough. All the technology, all the name changes, all the organizational structures will not change the fact that the company is not customer-centric. It will make it sound good, but many miss the point when moving towards being truly customer-centric, because all the people and process side has not been adjusted. And this is a long journey. It's not a one-time tell the company move on. I like to compare it to an Undercover Boss episode, TV show episode, that when those guys go out to the field, those CEOs, and they put, sort of makeup on so no one recognizes them, I'm always very fascinated, because I bet you a lot of those frontline people would not recognize their CEO because they've probably never seen them. That CEO's never walked the store floor, has never shown up at the warehouse, doesn't do anything communicating to them on a regular basis. So how would they even recognize them? So get out of your four walls, manage your teams by walking around, get out and meet the customers. And as you do that, people will start to believe that there is a change coming, and it really has to be around this customer centricity. Redefine the relationships and influence and engagement. Your best sales force, 2 words, is your customers advocating on your behalf. And so if you can redefine the relationships externally and internally, understand the influence that your customers have on the market at large and how new customers find you, and how your teams engage with each other has impact on how they engage with the customer, goes a long way. Will not get fixed unless you change your key performance indicators to foster the right behavior and incentivize the right behavior. Get people on board by having a shared metric that they can have over time, and move into it. Do not wipe out what you're doing. I'm not telling you to rip and replace. I'm telling you add to. Drop off those key performance indicators or metrics which are no longer driving the right behavior. And use data in context, thinking about being much more predictive in your selling. What are the things you can do to be more predictive? Do you call 100 people every day, or do you just call the right 10? I would vote for you just call the right 10 versus wasting your time on 90. 66% of your time is spent in non-selling activities. I would say leaving a voicemail that nobody listens to is a non-selling activity. It may tick the box, and your manager may say, yep, Tiffany, called 100 people today, but was it the right 100 people? So being much more prescriptive allows you to be much more predictive. And then driving towards a very intimate sales engagement. Thinking about being intimate, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, without being creepy on following your customers so that they know that you're watching everything that they're doing. They may go, whoa, 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 like I'm going to opt out of this, right? I feel like they know too much about what I'm doing. You have to find the very fine balance between, I know a lot about you, Mr. Customer, and I want to communicate to you in a personalized and predictive way without it feeling creepy is the technical term, I guess. And so one of the questions is how company structure shows you are customer-centric. And I think that goes back to even something as much as how do you have team calls between sales, marketing, and service? Do they all sit on the same floor, or is the call center someplace completely else? Some of these things really have to do with showing that the organization can be much more collaborative than having it stay in isolation. And so ultimately, those are the things that you can do. And I think that if you just keep the structure the same way, and your leadership team talks about how it's so different, and then everyone looks around and goes, it doesn't feel very different to me because I still have team meetings on Tuesday. It's still the same set of people. No one has come to listen in on customer calls. It has a lot more to do with the organizational structure, because that's really on a piece of paper. The customer doesn't care where someone reports. It has to do with how people feel within your organization. There was another question about the relationship or correlation between customer service and the cost of goods. I think I answered that on COGS, and thinking about customer service not as a cost center, but as an opportunity for you to sell more. And then another question was, can you give an example of where a company used technology but missed the point with using it towards true CX? Technology has to be the enabler. It cannot fix the problem. It cannot make the brand vision or the DNA of a company be more customer-centric. That has to come from the feeling that a company gives to its customers. Going back to that one slide that had Jeff Bezos and Tony Hsieh and Mark Benioff in the Ford quote, right? That is in their DNA. And so that is not about what technology they use. That is about how they approach every decision they make with the customer at the center of that, and then they figure out what's the right org structure. What are the right things that you can do in order to make the customer feel like we are paying attention? So I have actually a really great case study on org structure around customer experience and how that really drove growth. It was a perfect segue. This is a copy of my book. It's on sale now. It's called Growth IQ. You can buy it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or 800 CEO Reads, also at your local bookstores. But there's 30 case studies in there that basically talk through how you use a lot of the things we talked about on the podcast, on the webinar today, around growth and how you use customer experience as your true north and the DNA of the company, and how it needs to permeate through every single other decision that you make going forward. And so I just want to once again thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the content that we've put forward this morning. You can find me and follow me on @Tiffani_Bova or connect with me online. But I'd love to hear some feedback. You know, I give this presentation quite a bit, and I edit and learn from all of you and the questions that you get. That I get, you know, so there was some great questions, and so that tells me I need to weave some of that COGS conversation and some of the org conversation into my future presentations. And so I learn from you and adjust on the fly. So I hope you have enjoyed this time with us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. And so, I just want to thank all of you for spending time with me, and I'm going to pass it back over to wrap this up. So again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tiffani, for that fantastic presentation. We do have a little bit of time left to get to the other questions. But I did want to share a positive comment from Brett, who's currently reading your book and loving it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Problem.
I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for addressing a lot of the questions that came through. I just wanted to share a couple more before we officially conclude.
Of course.
And we have Raul. Thank you. So we have Raul here that is wondering, how would you go about approaching designing the experience for a customer, especially for a company which is offering a service for its first time, and has not had previous customers or competitors offering similar service?
Yeah, this is a tough one. In my previous life when I was with Gartner, for those of you familiar with the hype cycle, I actually wrote a research note that showed if someone is at a tech trigger, right, where it's a brand new technology and everyone's sort of going, I'm not really sure what that technology is. And by the way, right, it was everything from cloud to websites, right, it have all sort of traveled through this hype cycle. And what I did was I wrote a note about how we sell and market at each of those phases of the hype cycle. So when it's in the tech trigger, it's new, it's like in a development lab or an R&D, it's really early, people don't know really what that is, what that category is, there's no magic quadrant, that no one is writing about the opportunity, and you're really breaking new ground. That tends to be a much more technical sale where the owners or the startup founders are actually out trying to find alpha customers to use the technology so that they can learn along the way. That's very different. It's a very different experience because the moment you start to get traction, you get a dozen or so customers, whatever the number is, people are starting to talk about it and you're getting a little bit of press. Now the sales cycle and the experience is going to be different because those that were out selling initially, the concept and the new idea, there's no way they can continue to do it going forward. So that's when a founder or a startup has to hire their first sales rep or their first marketer. And now you start moving towards the how do I keep it going up this hype cycle, right, to the hype, to this, and then unfortunately it comes down this slope of disillusionment, which is where many people sort of crash and burn and go, God, nobody's talking about it, like we found a stall in our growth. And so I would tell you that it's a really great question because when you are breaking ground into brand new market, the selling cycle, the amount of time in the sales cycle, your pipeline, who you're dealing with, who you're selling to, who's selling is very different than when the category is established. So like taking Uber, going back to that as an example, the reason Uber was so easy was because you're like, oh, it's like a taxi, but easier. And everyone goes, oh, well, I understand what a taxi is. Or Airbnb, it's like a hotel, but you're staying at someone's home. People can associate a service with a similar service, just done in a modernized way or using technology differently. When it's something completely different, where they're like, I'm going to back up my data to the cloud, there's no reference point. Well, okay, you used to put it on a floppy drive, and then you put it on an external drive. Now you're putting it up into the quote-unquote cloud. With each of those iterations, people had to get more familiar with it. So it's a great question, but I would tell you that those are the two sort of determining triggers is, how early you are, and then when you start to hire your first salesperson, it's a very different experience.
Very wonderful. Thank you so much for that detailed response. We have another question from Andy, who's curious if you can provide an example where a company used technology, but they might have missed the point with using it towards true CX.
So number one, I would never say a company name on a webinar because that's sort of not politically correct. But I would say this. I'd say, unfortunately, let's go back to one of those slides, that 57% of customers absolutely think that they're missing expectations. So you could say, 50% of every brand you can think of is failing by using technology because, look, we don't have a technology problem. Whether you use our technology or someone else's technology, at the end of the day, we don't have a technology problem. We have a people process problem. Because everything we talked about, can be solved by eClerx, by us, by everybody. There's a solution out there that will solve these problems. But just deploying it doesn't mean that people change their behavior, use it differently, trust the information, and so then it doesn't move the needle on CX. So I would tell you that if you gave me an example of 5 companies, I bet you and I would come down to half of them are 6 companies, right? 3 of them are doing an okay job, and 3 of them are doing well. And if you told that to the CEO, they'd be like, "Oh my God, we've just made X amount of dollar investments in technology. How is it possible that customers don't feel that we're not delivering a better experience?" And that's why I said you have to start with the customer and work backwards and figure out what works.
All right, wonderful. And I will help you out, give you a little bit of a break because we received a lot of questions about the slides and this content being available. And so there's good news there. The eClerx team will be sending out a follow-up email with webcast details, including access to these slides. Quite a few people have asked, which is a great indication, Tiffani, that your content was worthwhile. And again, as a reminder to our audience, the recording will also be available later on this afternoon on ama.org/webcast as an on-demand feature. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to review and take additional notes to the content that she provided. We have run out of time for today, so I want to thank Tiffani again. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise. Thank you, of course, to eClerx Digital for your generous partnership. And, of course, thank you so much to our audience for your time, for your participation. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.